I returned from my business trip earlier than planned. I did not tell anyone I was coming back. I wanted to surprise Liam with my early arrival. When I drove to our street, I saw many cars lined up. The front yard was filled with balloons in soft green and lavender. A banner hung above the door that read, "Welcome home, our little wonder." I parked a few houses away and walked slowly to the door. I noticed the door was slightly open and warm music and gentle laughter spilled out onto the quiet street. When I stepped inside, I stopped dead in the middle of the living room. My best friend, Rachel, was standing by the sofa, visibly 8 months pregnant. Liam's mother, Margaret, was softly rubbing Rachel's belly, and my own mother was busy handing out drinks. Neatly wrapped gifts were stacked on a table near a decorated crib that looked ready for the baby. My Aunt June asked in a small voice, "Is the nursery all set?" Almost without a word, Rachel replied, "Liam decided to do the painting himself. He has been at it every weekend." At that moment, Liam walked in carrying a tray with more drinks. He walked over to Rachel and wrapped his arms around her from behind. His hands rested on her belly as if nothing was wrong. "We just need to put the crib together," he said as if it were a normal evening. I stood frozen, feeling a heavy knot in my stomach. My mother's smile faded the moment she saw me. She quickly approached and whispered, "Sarah, we were not expecting you today. Come with me outside. We need to talk." I pulled away from her touch and asked, "Talk about what?" Her eyes were full of worry as she said, "About how Liam has been hiding things from you." I could hardly believe what I was hearing. The chatter in the room slowed down when Rachel finally caught sight of me. Her face went pale and Liam's grip on her loosened. In a trembling voice, Rachel mumbled, I didn't mean for you to find out like this." Liam tried to speak but was interrupted by my mother. "How long, Liam? How long have you been dishonest with me?" My voice came out harsh and trembling at the same time. I saw my father standing quietly in the background, his eyes downcast. He could not face me. Rachel stepped forward, pleading, "I can explain. We wanted to tell you later. Please, Sarah." I interrupted her. "Later? When were you going to tell me? After the baby was born? Or when our child was grown up?" Margaret, trying to calm everyone, said softly, "Sarah, think about the baby. Rachel does not need more stress in this condition." I laughed bitterly, a laugh that held the pain of old memories. I remember that same excuse. I lost my first baby 2 years ago, and no one cared enough then, I said, my voice quivering with hurt. A deep silence fell over the room. My mother's eyes shone with unshed tears as she tried again. "Honey, please, I know this is hard." "Hard?" I repeated sharply. "Hard for you, who sat by and pretended everything was fine while I was working abroad, and hard for everyone else who kept covering up for this lie." My eyes scanned the room as I saw familiar faces now masked in betrayal. Liam moved closer to Rachel. "Sarah, can we talk privately? Please don't make a scene," he pleaded. "A scene? A scene would be telling the whole world that you convinced me to accept that overseas assignment," I retorted bitterly. I turned to Rachel and asked in a cold tone, "Did Liam ever say you were lonely, or did he just hide behind excuses?" Rachel's eyes filled with tears. "It wasn't planned," she whispered. "I didn't want it to happen. I wish I could explain, but I never meant for you to be hurt." I could barely listen, feeling each word cut like a knife. The guests began to shift uncomfortably. Some of them gripped their bags as if thinking of leaving soon. Finally, my father, who had been silent and still all evening, cleared his throat. "Sarah, please, calm down," he said quietly. "I am calm. I am not angry at all," I snapped. "I am grateful now," I added, much to his shock. "Grateful?" he repeated, confusion in his tone. "Yes, I now see everyone for who they really are. My husband, the liar, my best friend, the conspirator, and my family, the ones who hid behind lies instead of facing the truth." I walked toward the table of gifts and picked one at random. "This one is for you, Mom," I said, holding up a neatly wrapped gift. "You bought a special gift for the child of my husband's mistress?" My mother pleaded. "Sarah, please do not do this." I tore open the wrapping paper. Inside was a small white outfit with green trim. "How thoughtful," I said with a bitter smile. "I hope you kept the receipt." Before I could finish, Liam tried to take the gift from my hands. "Sarah, stop," he said, his voice desperate. "You are making a fool of all of us." I put the gift down firmly. "No, Liam. You made this mess on your own by choosing to betray our trust. You chose to sleep with someone who you said was your closest friend while I was off working and supporting all of us." His mother, Margaret, looked as if she might cry. "This is too much, Liam." "I only wanted a bit of happiness," she whispered. I looked around at the room filled with blank stares. "You can keep the house, the furniture, and even the gifts," I declared. "But Liam, I am done with you, and I will never share a penny of my money with you again. What do you think you will do when you have no financial support?" His face grew ashen. "What are you saying?" he asked, his voice trembling. While I was overseas, I was not just working to build our future. I was also planning our exit from this disgrace. I have every receipt, every record of every expense I covered by myself. My words fell like a hammer on the silence of that room. I left the house with my head held high. My hands trembled as I reached for my car door, but I did not cry in front of them. I drove away without looking back. Every call and message on my phone told me that my family and even Liam were pleading for a chance to explain. I ignored them all. I knew the truth, and I knew the path I needed to take next. I drove for a long time until I found a small motel on the edge of town. I checked into a room without a word to the receptionist. Once inside, I locked the door and sank onto the bed. Slowly, I began to cry. Not just from hurt, but also from the anger that had built up over years of being deceived. I thought of all the nights I had spent working alone in a foreign city, believing that my sacrifices would lead to a better life for all of us. Instead, they had made me a pawn in someone else's betrayal. The next morning, I went straight to my lawyer. He had known about some of the problems even before I left. With a steady voice, I said, "I want to start the divorce process today. I do not want any shared property or money to go to Liam. Everything is mine now." He nodded. "You have all the proof you need. The house is in your name, and every bill, every receipt is with you. He has no claim over any of your earnings." I took a deep breath. Then let him learn the hard way what it means to betray trust. Days passed with Liam calling and texting nonstop. At one point, as I sat sipping coffee at a small cafe, Liam approached me again. He looked disheveled and tired. "Sarah, please," he said, sitting down across from me without waiting for an invitation. I don't know how to fix this," he confessed in a low voice. I folded my arms and said coldly, "How did you expect things to be? That I would welcome you back with open arms after everything that has happened?" Liam's eyes shimmered with regret. "I was lonely. I felt abandoned when you were away," he mumbled. I laughed softly, a sound without humor. "Being busy with work is not an excuse for betraying trust, Liam. I worked too hard every day to support us, to build a home for our future while you stayed at home doing nothing." He lowered his gaze and whispered, "I made a mistake. I was an idiot." I shook my head. "You don't get to say that now. I have already moved on." I ended that meeting by texting my lawyer again. The divorce papers were on their way to finalize, and I was determined to see it through. I felt a quiet relief knowing that I was finally free from the lies and the secrets that had tormented me for too long. Weeks later, I heard from a friend that Liam's situation had grown even worse. He was struggling to pay bills and had lost his job due to his dishonesty. His reputation had crumbled, and he was forced to leave the house he once called home. I even saw a brief glimpse of him on the street one rainy evening. He looked thin, his eyes hollow, and his hands shook as he clutched a box of belongings. "You brought this on yourself, Liam," I said softly as he passed by, barely meeting his gaze. He did not answer. In the days that followed, I distanced myself from those who tried to guilt me for the choices I had made. My family members called and pleaded for me to forgive, saying things like, "It was complicated," or "You should let it go." I could not understand how they could be so blind. "I do not owe any of you forgiveness," I told them. "I owe only myself the chance to rebuild my life." I started fresh. I found a small apartment of my own and began to work on myself. Again. I met new people and slowly rebuilt my happiness. Every time I heard another story of Liam's misfortune, from missed calls, missed payments, and lost opportunities, I felt a strange satisfaction. Justice, in a bitter way, was finally catching up with him. Then one quiet afternoon at a local park, I received an unexpected call from Rachel. Her voice trembled as she said, "Sarah, I filed for divorce." I paused, trying to process her words. Rachel had been the one who had shared in Liam's secrets. Now, she admitted, she was leaving him too, asking for support to make a new start. I could hardly believe it. "You want alimony?" I asked incredulously. "Yes," she replied softly. "He promised to support me, and now that the baby is coming, I need help." I shook my head in mixed disbelief and amusement. Life had a strange sense of irony. The very man who had lied to us both was now facing consequences on all sides. Not long after, Liam made one last desperate call. He appeared at a rundown bar that he used to frequent, looking more broken than ever. I sat quietly at a table a few seats away as he ordered a drink. His eyes, once filled with boastful confidence, were now empty and defeated. When our eyes met, he said, "Sarah, I need your help. Please tell me there is still a way." I looked at him with a steady gaze and said, "You made your choices, Liam. I am not here to save you." His voice cracked as he replied, "I was lost without you." I leaned forward and said with a cold clarity, "I built my life on my own. I am done with all the lies, and I will no longer let you drag me down." That night, as I walked away, from the bar, I felt a mix of sorrow and determination. I had been hurt deeply, but I was also finally free. Free of the deception, the burdens of a false family, and the weight of unreturned love. I knew that every hardship had brought me closer to the truth. I deserved respect, care, and a life built on honesty. In the following months, Liam's world fell apart completely. He was unable to contest the divorce, and every court ruling favored me. His financial ruin became the subject of hushed conversations among friends. I heard he was working odd jobs just to stay afloat, and even Rachel's life was slowly changing as she fought for her own independence. The taste of betrayal was bitter, but I found strength in the hardship. Each day was a lesson in resilience and self-respect. I now live in my new apartment with a small view of the city. I have rebuilt my career and found happiness in simple moments. A warm cup of tea on a chilly morning, quiet walks in the park, and genuine smiles from new friends. I do not allow the past to control my future. Liam's calls have long stopped, and the messages go unanswered. I even received one final message from him asking for forgiveness. I simply replied, "I forgive myself for ever believing in your lies." Looking back, I see that every tear and every moment of anger taught me that my worth was never tied to someone who did not respect me. I have learned that sometimes the hardest choices are the ones that set you free. My heart has been scarred, but it beats with a newfound strength. I know the truth now. I am the author of my own life, and I will always choose honesty over betrayal. That is the story of how I came home early, only to discover that my life had been built on lies. It is the story of betrayal and heartbreak, of confronting the truth and rising above it. It is my story of a fresh start and the sweet taste of justice, of reclaiming a life once stolen by deceit. I have moved forward and left the ruins behind. And every day I remind myself that I am free, that I am whole, and that I deserve nothing less than my own genuine happiness.